And how do you work with the director on this? And I know each film is probably different, but let's use Wakanda Forever. Now, there was obviously the prior film, so a lot of Wakanda was already built, but what was the inspiration? And it's such a large scope for a movie. You have such a large population that you're trying to depict. It's a city. Where did you and Ryan, or you and your team, start deriving this inspiration from?
Right. I think, Ryan, I sat down and he's very hands-on, and you can really Ryan's the type, you can call him, you can text him. And what I love about him is you can text him like a question or an idea, and he might not answer you in the moment, but like if I hear my phone like ping at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning, that's him. Mm-hmm. He's answered me. Or I used to always scare him because he might call and he's like, oh my God, you picked up the phone. I says, I'm going to pick up the phone if I see it's you calling. Mm-hmm. But that's just me. Like I'm a nut. Like I love it like that. And I want like to hear it from him, like whatever the question might be. So with him, it's like from the beginning, we just really started talking about every character and where we find them too. And this, it's really important. We find them, basically it's after T'Challa's death. Mm-hmm. So how was Marvel going to tell the story for not only for the fans, but also for us as the crew? Because we lost our king too. So it's something that, was something that we talked about, and how he talked about how Wakanda Forever was the mother's story, was the women's story. So that was something, and how they're all interconnected. So those were like some of the initial conversations, and then getting into, so especially with Shuri and Ramona with their characters, what they would look like, say, after T'Challa's death, and leaning into the West African culture, what they would look like if they had shaved their heads in mourning. So a year after that, what would the hair look like? So that's how the big bubble of that happened as far as for the Wakandans. And then there was also, then we have the Talakanil getting into the Mesoamerican look. And, what was this going to look like? What was this ancient Mayan ancestry going to look like? And taking the same like cultural appropriation that we did with the first Black Panther and bringing it to the Latin culture, I really wanted to make sure that we did the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And was there any like rules that you put into place, or like rules of engagement with the hair, or things that how do I want to word this? That you knew that you wanted to try differently from the first, or things that maybe didn't work in the first as well, right, after you saw the first film? They're like, all right, I want to do it better this time around.
Oh, definitely. That's so funny, because that was one of like the discussions I had with, especially one of my vets who had been there with me before, is Victor Paz. He's my barber and he's a good friend. And like, I just went into the trunks, and some of the things where Ryan was like, that doesn't work, or this doesn't work. I was like, okay, how can we rework this? Mm-hmm. How can we get this in this movie, or how can we do it even better? And like one of the things I think that we actually learned how to do better was for the mining tribe, the red clay wigs. Like initially when we did the red clay wigs, they took us forever. It took like a month to get one done. This time we were cranking out wigs like every 2 to 3 days. We cracked the code. We got it together, and we got it done like so much faster. So, and then also I'm going to say this, in like the first Black Panther, there was a very low supply of what I call natural textured hair, like what I call a 3 A, B, or C, or a 4 A, B, and C, like curly hair, coiled hair, kinky hair. There wasn't really much of a supply out there. So everything that we got, we had to work really hard. We had to permit. We had to we had a lot of work to do. Where now, one thing I call it the Black Panther effect. It's changed the world in the sense of all those type of hair textures now. So women of color who have curly hair, who have coily hair, all that hair now you can readily buy. Mm-hmm. So it really, I called it the Black Panther effect. At least I was like, that's one of the things that I'm really proud of. Like, I know how that has all changed and the world has evolved. Right. So going into the second picture, it was a lot easier because a lot of it was actually out in the marketplace for us to buy.
That's really cool to see the impact of a film. You get to see it because as the consumer that has to buy these products to put into a movie and probably buy it at high volume, it's really tricky during the first film. And the first one came out in 2018. That's really not that long ago. But now you're entering the second film. You probably started shooting shortly after the first one. Now that you have this second film, you saw the effects of what just you in your own department, in your own role, how that was able to change the landscape and help people outside of just filmmaking.
Exactly. You know, it's the most beautiful thing. I remember like after Black Panther, the first one came out, and people just started sending me pictures of like, you know, their children in the Black Panther suit. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like that's when, you know, like you kind of created something like, you know, a pop culture, like that's going to like last forever.
That's really beautiful. I want to talk about some of the technical aspects of Black Panther. And we were talking about there was a lot of wet scenes and what it's like working in scenarios where it's not just a dry environment or looking great all the time. There's times where you have to make things not look so beautiful. What are some of the techniques and things that you learned or that you implemented during Wakanda Forever?
So especially with the Talakanil, we shot a lot of it in tanks in water. So, you know, initially it was really about, first, I want to say we started with, we had a professor, and I can't remember his name right now, but a professor of Mayan culture. So really talking to him and him showing, really walking me through, and we already had done a lot of research, but like him saying, okay, so this hairstyle would be on maybe a woman who wasn't married. This would be on a person who is married, or this would be on a person of this social status. So working through like all those different layers of what the hair would look like. In, you know, especially in that culture, it's a culture that is gone. So it's not something like you can just even go to Google and find things. So it was something that, you know, we had to do a lot of research and a lot of digging to really bring, and then also like, what was it all going to look like with wardrobe? What was it going to look like, you know, with makeup? Because, you know, we have the transition of where before, I'll just say before something happens in the movie, I won't say, and then you have this whole culture that they're turning blue. So how is this blue going to work with what we're doing with the hair, you know, and the styling of the hair, and even being underwater. And underwater, like I have a whole new respect for water. You know, water is something, it's living and it's breathing. And how are we going to make the hair look beautiful underwater? And like we did a lot of test, and I work really closely with visual effects, which is Jeff Bauman, and, you know, getting into like, you know, because the water, if the hair is too loose, you know, the hair is flying across the face. That's not beautiful. So how do we contain it, you know, where it looks naturally, it's naturally moving, but how do we contain it so the hair is not, every take is not engulfing somebody's face when they're moving? Or how do we get this hair to stand up or stay up? And, you know, that was something that was really trial and error. And, you know, we had some tough days in the water in the beginning. I was like, Camille was like almost wanted to pull her hair out. But we came across a solution. And I'll tell you, a great solution happened. Like one day I was just thinking about it, and I was like, we just have to figure out this hair underwater. It just doesn't look good to me. And I remember a friend of mine, his name is Jake Garber. And he's also he does makeup for Samuel Jackson. He's a good friend. And I remember him telling me a little trick about how you can mix alcohol and then you can mix glue, like a spirit gum together, and you could thin it out and you could just use it. So I was like, okay, let's try it. So I started trying it. We mixed it together. I was like, shake it up. We're going to use it like a hairspray. And so we tested on one wig, and I was like, okay, it didn't turn white. That's good. Let's test it underwater, because this was the other trick. We could not use any products on the hair, like a regular hairspray, regular gel, because it clouded the water.
It all came off.
It all came off, and it was clouding the water. Like, I remember them jumping into the water, and I saw the cloud. I was like, oh, God, this is embarrassing. We got to figure this out. So we came up with, I call it our glue hairspray. So once we came up with the glue hairspray, we were off to the races. So, you know, just like finding a solution to the problem of we needed the hair to stay up and not be like, moving all around, or if it did move, be able to stay up, and when they're in the tank for 10, 12 hours, because people in the tank for quite a long time. So that was a little behind the scenes that we got to do.
That's incredible. Yeah, it seems like a lot of trial and error. And have you done any other films that were this, like, where you had to be in water this much, or was this your really first experience where you guys were shooting in these tanks a lot?
Like, I've done some water, and like I know, like I did a TV show many years ago with Taylor Hackford, and we had to put people actually in the ocean. And I remember like being terrified. That was early in my career. And I remember calling one of my mentors, and she told me, she was like, silicone glue, like a medical adhesive silicone glue. So even to this day, that's one of the things that we use, and like, using different mixtures of glue to ensure that the hair will stay on underwater. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. Were there any other particular challenges that you overcame during the production of Wakanda Forever that you're really proud of?
The water is probably one of the biggest things. And then too, also you had the water, but then you have on the opposite side, you have the heat. So you have like, we were in Atlanta in the heat, like full on summer, sweating, and you're out there, people are fighting. And, so you have the opposite. So you're dealing with sweat, you're dealing with perspiration, you're dealing with humidity. Humidity is not a friend to the hair. Yeah. We don't like humidity.
I feel that. My hair gets super frizzy in the summer.
Yeah, so humidity is something that, like challenging. So getting all of the products that, help with the anti-humidity. And I always tell people, one thing about humidity, you want to layer the products on the hair, because basically you just want to have enough moisture in the hair that you're blocking the moisture that's coming in, so the hair is not going poof on you. So it's like sealing that cuticle and having it where you have a barrier so you don't have the hair exploding. So those are all like little things that, behind the scenes, that's what, that we had to do. And I think personally what's challenging for me is that I've worked on movies. We had, like a lot of different, units, but we had a lot of different units. And like, there was one month that I think I worked 27 days straight, because the challenge is, even if you're working on first unit, on the weekend, second unit could be going on. And you could be establishing like first unit characters, or you could be changing somebody's look on the water unit. So I was like, I have to be there. I have to make sure that this is going to go properly, if this is going to be something that I want. So, and sometimes, people can take pictures, but I'm just a person. I just want to be there. So,
Absolutely.
Even like sometimes I would be in the trailer and I would be asleep, and they're like, Camille, we're up, we're ready to go. I'm like, okay, I'm ready, let's go. Because I mean, I was burning the candle at both ends, but to me, that's what my job is. And, I'm there to show up for the filmmakers. I'm there for the film. I'm there for the actors. And, the constant look of the hair department, that's what my job is. And it's just like when I sign on the dotted line, that's what I do.
That's awesome. Well, your attention to detail definitely shows. If you look back from Tenet to all of these other films, Us, a really great example. The hairstyles in that were great. It just shows how much time and effort it takes. And obviously your team is a big part of that to really pull off these massive set pieces. Wakanda Forever has some amazing set pieces in it, and the amount of time it probably took to get everybody dialed in. It's really impressive, and yeah, you really have to have that energy and charisma to pull it off in collaborative nature, which it really shows that you have. What are some of the things that seem easy, but they really are hard as a hair designer and stylist?
I always say this. Hairstylists are like cats. You can't hurt cats. So, we're creative people, and like, somebody could be going this way, going that way. It's like, okay, guys, keep it together. So, always for me, it's like talking to my team, and like even personally talking to people, and like, if you're having a problem, just tell me what the problem is. Tell me what's going on. Like, because people sit there and they're like, I can't say anything. It's like, if you have something going on in your life, just talk to me. I'm a human. Things happen. So, just be able to talk to your team, have the human connection with your team. And, sometimes I have to make decisions that people don't like. tough decisions, but I have to make them. And, sometimes my team is not happy with me, but I have to know I have to make the decision for the greater good and be okay with it. And one thing my ex-husband taught me, he was like, being a department head is not the popular position.
Yeah.
So if you want to be popular, don't be the department head, because you have to, it's not always easy. You have to make tough decisions. You have to make decisions that are more about the group than somebody individually. And, sometimes it's hard because you have people that you really like, but sometimes they don't fit into the chemistry of the trailer. And sometimes people are a cancer in the trailer and they have to go. And sometimes it's tough, and you might like them as people, but they don't work with the energy.
Right. That's really good advice. I mean, that's good leadership advice too, right? Whether you're in your department or something else, you want to make sure that the synergy amongst all players is working towards the unified goal at the end of the day.
Totally. And I just say this with creative people, sometimes they do not play well in the sandbox together. And that's one thing you have to learn how to play in the sandbox. And the sandbox for us is the trailer.
Yeah.
And I say this, I can work in the trailer with anybody. I've worked with people. I don't necessarily like them as people. I don't want to go to lunch with them or dinner with them. But inside of the trailer and on the set is a professional atmosphere. We have to get along. Mm-hmm. We have to cohabitate. So you put on your professional hat, you come to work, and you do your job.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. So when you have a new project, obviously you're going to be getting more. What do you look for? Is it something specifically with the director, the script, the characters, a mixture of all things? And I know you're always looking for new challenges. What are the things that come to mind for you?
All of the above. Looking at who's the director, who the actor is, what the action is in it. Is it a new property? Is it an older property? All of those things make a difference to me. And is there going to be something cool in there to do with the hair? Always looking to do something fun, different, and establishing. I love establishing new societies. I love when in Marvel or any other world where I get the origin movie, because the first origin movie is where you get to establish people and you get to set your tone and your feel to it. So I love that part of it.
Do you have a specific genre that you really like working within, or is it just dependent on what the project is?
It really depends what the project is. It's not a certain genre. And, some people think, oh, you only do action movies, Camille. No, I've done a lot of different movies. It just really depends. It just really depends. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really good insight. Something that I would love to know is more about, I know that you eventually pivoted. You were talking about during Guardians of the Galaxy, you pivoted into becoming an educator as well. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to shine a spotlight on Hair Scholars, which is your platform. If you wouldn't mind just giving us some background on that.
I would love to. So Hair Scholars is my baby that I didn't even know that I was going to birth. But it is what Hair Scholars is it's something that I'm passionate about, and it's my way of giving back. So it is an educational, we do educational classes, and basically what I really developed over COVID, too much time on my hands, I had to do something. So I really developed the business side of it out. So I think we have a good mix of classes that we have, for beginners. So it's teaching people, how do you get into this business? What do you need to do? What is your resume? Teaching people from from the basics, basically it's the blueprint. The blueprint for beginners, that's the beginning class. Then we have a class on, your blueprint to how to make your deal. How do you make your deal? What should be in your deal? These are all business side. Then I have classes on, basically the blueprint to how to be a key, how to be a good key, how to do that, and even how to, move up. And then also the blueprint for department head. And that's a class that's absolutely my favorite class now. I love working with people and getting them into the right mindset and teaching them everything that I know and I've learned and I continue to learn about department heading, from not only the paperwork, how to do your manpower days, how to do your budgets, how to make a wig, all of those things that are insightful in what we do inside of the trailer, teaching that to people. One thing, this is the kind of business which is people kind of learn hook or crook. Mm-hmm. There's not necessarily a blueprint to what like how you should do it. So if I can give people the tools to be successful and the confidence to be successful, they can go out into the workplace and do so many great things. And I've even seen with so many of my students, they're so successful, and like, they're buying houses in the first 18 months that they get into the business. I'm like, that's right. Go get that
That's
house.
awesome.
Like, I bought my first house very early. I remember I had a great mentor, and that's John Lithgow. And he was like, Camille, he goes, we're going to be on the show. We're going to probably do 5 years. So this is what you need to do. He goes, you need to, buy a house. You need to get a car. You need to get a CPA. Like all of those things that he
awesome.
that he taught me. I was like, and that's what I teach people now. So like just having all the right tools to have a successful career. These careers are not built on just osmosis. There's a plan. And if you get your personal plan right, and then you get into all the skills that you need, and then also just how to build the career, you can be successful.